Hello, my name is Diana. I'm the program coordinator for the Buchanan Area Senior Center. Welcome to Fireplace Conversations featuring Adam Burck. He is the executive director here at the center. We're very pleased to have him. Adam has done amazing things in a short period of time here at the center. He's a pioneer, he's a go-getter, he thinks out of the box, and he has really made this center very abundant and growing with different kind of classes that he offers. It suggests to me on what we could be doing, how he takes care of our seniors, and just improving the building and the grounds and everything. Adam, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you.
Share a little bit about us. What was it first interested you in the center? How did you get to be where you are?
So when I first moved here, I moved here from Chicago. I grew up in Chicago on the south side in Morgan Park. And moved here to care for my mom. So my mom's connection to over here was her family had cottages at the Prairie Club in Harbert. So when she got to near retirement age, she decided she wanted to live out here full time. So she bought a house in Harbert. And that's kind of started us coming here more regularly, not just in the summers. And then when she got to the point she couldn't really care for her home anymore, she was 78. And just getting not able to keep up with it. So I looked for a place that was near my brother and sister-in-law who are in Galeen and their family. And that led me to buy the place just south of town here out in the country. And she moved in there. And then after she needed more help, I decided to move out here. I was ready for a change. I had been doing community and economic development in Chicago for over 25 years at that point, I think 27. So I was kind of ready for a change. And so I moved here and I got involved with One Buchanan.
Oh, okay.
Through Sid Mullen, who is another Chicagoan who relocated out here. And he's in retirement, whereas I'm not, but he moved out here and we hooked up and he said, hey, there's this group that I've gotten involved in that you should really check out. And so I did, and I met Monroe and other great people, and that's how I got connected to the center. We met here, and then when Monroe was going to be leaving to take care of her mother, she decided, she said to me, oh, hey, there's this job opening, you should really apply. So I did, and took a couple of tries, but I got it. And
you did, so grateful.
Yeah. So that's what got me here, was that connection.
Okay.
Networking has kind of been a part of my career too. It's with community development, that's a big part of it.
So you talked about being in Chicago and then coming into the country. Was that a big change for you to
It was, but I was ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It was timing.
Yeah. Yeah. I lived in Uptown most of my life, in my adult life, right on the lakefront, so it was a very busy and very vibrant place. I loved it. But I kind of was, my priorities were changing. I was almost 50 and I was already 50, I guess. And I was thinking, I want to spend more time with family. I knew my mom, I didn't know it was that brief, but I knew that her time on Earth was limited, so I wanted to spend more time with her. So that was what led me out here.
And that's been about what, since you've been with the center, 2 years?
So January of 2019, yeah.
Yeah.
Or 19, yeah, right. That's 2 years.
I love 2020 has been kind of like a blur. It's going by fast, it's going by slow, a couple of things gone in and out. So yeah, so 2 years with the center. Yeah. That's wonderful. And so far, in your term that you've been here at the center, what really entices you? What is your favorite things that you do?
Well, I love just that it's a social place, that it's a community center, really. And I love I grew up in a large family. There were 6 kids, my extended family. My grandmother lived with us. And we always had some other couple people living with us. Like my mom got very involved with Youth for Understanding, foreign exchange program. So we always had foreign exchange students, usually a couple living with us, from Germany, Belgium, Japan, Sweden, Italy. Wow. We had students from all over. It was great. We also had friends that just needed a place to stay. I can remember when my sister was at the university and she befriended somebody from Iran who needed a place to live in the summer, and he got a job as a CTA bus driver, and this was during the Iran hostage crisis.
Oh, wow.
The stories he shared with us about the abuse he suffered being in a public position like that, and the just the anger that people threw at him was eye-opening to me. And so that and all the foreign exchange students and just living in an extended family really opened my eyes to the world as a young child, and I really credit my mom with doing that for us. And so then I decided to move on and do other things that further broadened my horizon, but that's all just that living in a very kind of a hub of activity in a very social environment makes this, I love working here because it's similar. Okay. Even though my job keeps me behind my desk a lot at QuickBooks and other things, I love the chance to come out and interact with people and just see the activity, even if I can't be part of it right away.
Here at the center, we are starting to have some indoor exercise programs wearing the mask. And to hear that music is so wonderful, hearing the laughter, them talking. So slowly, we're hoping that the center is coming back alive, as well as all the community, the restaurants, and everyone being able to be safe and get out again. So that is exciting, because I was here after the pandemic had started, and I'm really enjoying this. That interaction is really wonderful. We have had short conversations during lunches, and Adam and I have had. He has lived an extraordinary life, and he has been around the world. He has been an exchange student himself, and he has been in the Peace Corps. Is that what's? Mm-hmm. So, could you just share some highlights? Some of your. We probably could talk for the next 2 hours.
Yeah, right. Short. Shorten it down, right?
No, we have to. Yeah, you got about 20 minutes to take it on.
So yes, I grew up in Chicago, and kind of in the 60s and 70s, urban decay was a real thing. And people think now Chicago's this sparkly, besides the violence that's always on the news, but the lakefront and all of downtown, it's all this beautiful, shiny city. But, growing up there, it didn't look like that always. And it was, so I grew up seeing this urban decay and thinking, oh, I really want to do something about that. And that's what stimulated me to get into urban planning, was what I got my master's in. My dad was an architect, so I had that exposure through his eyes. He would take us on walks through downtown.
Oh, wow.
And showing us the buildings and things. So that was the inspiration to going into the urban planning and then community development. The experience of growing up with all kinds of foreign exchange students, stuff like that, that led me to decide, okay, in high school, I decided to, through Youth for Understanding, I did foreign exchange in Belgium. And then in college, I did a college year in Athens, it was called, a program through college. And so I studied in Athens in my junior year, and then did Peace Corps. After I got my master's degree in urban planning, I worked for about a year with a consulting firm, and parallel to that I had applied for the Peace Corps, and that always takes a while, so it took over a year, I think, to get through to the process where I was going into the Peace Corps. So I worked for that year and then entered the Peace Corps, and was placed in West Africa for a new program. They're developing an urban environmental management program. So basically it was community development, but dealing with the urban environment. So the impacts of the urbanization that was happening in Cote d'Ivoire, where these secondary cities were gaining lots of population from people coming from the rural areas, and bringing rural habits in an urban environment causes problems, like with all kinds of waste, solid waste and other waste, potable water, erosion. So those were the things we focused on. We were working with the city government to try and help them kind of create ways to better manage their urban environment. And that was great. I loved it. One of the projects we did was with this youth group, which in Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast in West Africa, the youth was everyone into their 30s for some reason. And so it was a large group of people. They wanted to do something in their neighborhood, so we started doing cleanup days and then planted some seeds in their brains and said, hey, maybe, we could continue this with these other things. And they decided, hey, we want to do, they came back to us with an idea. They said we would like to do a garbage pre-collect project which is one of the things that we had been studying that were being done in other places. So they would go from door to door with carts, collect people's trash, and bring it to the dumpsters, which were probably about a mile apart or something. So, if people here had to walk a mile with their garbage, there would be lots of piles of garbage.
Yeah, there would be.
So we dealt with the piles of garbage and then did an education campaign, and then they offered this service. And so they grew, they did their neighborhood and they grew it to some of the adjacent neighborhoods. And there was huge unemployment there. So, and they charged a small fee for that, and they were able to employ a bunch of people doing this at a modest wage, but still,
right,
where there were no jobs before, there was jobs, and there was something that was being done to improve the neighborhood. And that was a great project, and I loved that. And that led me to stay another year with this UNDP program that they had set up, doing similar projects, but we would go around the country and kind of be consultants basically with that town and help them set up what they needed as far as to address their urban problems.
How did the Peace Corps, going to Western Africa in that community that you were in, how did you match up with that? Were you like interviewed to see where you best fit at, where your interests were at? What kind of process?
Yeah, so it's a long process, and you are interviewed. You have to fill out a huge long application and write essays and stuff, and then if you make it through that, you're interviewed by a recruiter, I think they call them. And my recruiter, and they were, at that time, this was in 91 when I applied, I think, they were expanding their programs for people with advanced degrees. So it had traditionally been something people do right out of college after their bachelor's. Well, they had found that there was, more needs that weren't being met. They needed people with higher skills levels, so they started these programs that were more specific and for people with more advanced experience. So she was really good working with me and finding me a spot. I wanted to be in a Spanish-speaking country because I wanted to learn Spanish because I knew it would be useful back here, but I had French from high school, and then they have certain rules. They slot you where your language skills go, even though this was like Chicago high school French. It was not. But anyway, that caused me to have to go to a Francophone place. Okay. And so that's how I ended up in West Africa, and I'm really glad I did because it just opened my eyes to so much about Africa and its history and kind of how different their countries are and how many different tribes there are. Okay. And in Cote d'Ivoire alone, there's 70 different ethnic groups. So it's like very diverse.
Do they mingle with one another? Was there any kind of racism? Were they racist?
There is a lot of like anywhere. I don't know if you would call it racism or what you would call it, but prejudice against people from other tribes. So like when I was in Cote d'Ivoire in my first year, it was Halloween, I think, right around there. And a Peace Corps volunteer had a party and invited so we had, for a weekend, we all descended on this town and hung out together. It was fun. It was the first, I think, big get-together since we had started our service. And on the way back, it turned out that there was this soccer match between Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. It was the first match they had in over a decade, I think, because the last time they had one, it had been in the Ivory Coast, and there was a huge riot, and people were seriously hurt and killed.
Oh my gosh.
And so they hadn't done it for a long time. Well, now they were doing it in Ghana, in Kumasi, and on the way there, people, the buses from Cote d'Ivoire, I guess, were having stones thrown at them. And it's because, it's funny because it's the same tribal group that the two areas have. Like the Baule and Cote d'Ivoire were similar to I don't know what the tribe is in Kumasi, but much of the country shares a common history, but because now colonialism has divided them into countries, there was nationalism that was was at work. And so because of TV, people started seeing this right away. And my neighbors, their house was burned down. They were Ghanaian. We don't know what happened to them. They fled. I got back to my town. We had to stay in Abidjan for a few days because the bus from that town where we were at the party, when we got back to Abidjan, it was like the bus station. It's like a huge sprawling place with all these little markets and stuff. It was like things were on fire. They were stopping cars in the street, and they were trying to find Ghanaians to, be violent to them. So it was shocking, and like to see this, like you're living it. It's not like on your TV. It's like right there in front of you. And I got in like my primo seat, one right near the exit of the bus, because it's the station was gross and stinky and gross. And so you just want to get out and get the first taxi and get out of there. Well, then, like, they're prying the doors open and they're coming up the stairs. But I thought that was the one time I didn't like having that seat. But they were looking for Ghanaians, so we were okay.
Oh, my gosh.
And we had to stay there until we were approved to leave and go back up country. But in Abidjan, in Ume, when I got back to my site, my site mate and I went to the National Guards, the gendarmerie, they call it, because that's where they had sheltered the Ghanaians. And we bought like a dozen loaves of French bread and lavash laughing cow cheese. That was the big thing you could get there because it's shelf stable. And we brought that to the National Guard's place, and it was like 150 people. We were like, oh my God. It seemed like we were coming with a crumb when there was this. They were so appreciative. But I was like, I had no idea there were so many Ghanaians in Cote d'Ivoire. And the fact that, like, even people I knew had sheltered people in their homes and were hiding them and trying to get them safely out. It was very scary.
Oh my God, it sounds scary.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, that's not a warm experience, but it was eye-opening, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it also allowed you to have the reality of their lifestyle over there and versus coming here. It was Chicago's kind of could be rough sometimes, but with living in the area and how to handle things and see things differently, it also helps you to enlighten yourself and to move into new positions and to learn things with that and bring it forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty amazing. I think that's wonderful. Oh my gosh. So what else would you like to share?
Well, one of your questions is what I like to do with my free time.
Yes. Did you want? I was hoping you would share a little bit more, like maybe on your exchange student experience.
Oh, okay. So in high school, I was in Belgium, and it was a summer exchange program, they called it. So I was there for like 4.5 months, and it was in Sint-Truiden, which is or in French it would be Saint-Trude. So Saint Trude, whoever that is. And it's like in the Limburg province of Cote d'Ivoire, so it's kind of between Brussels and Maastricht, so western, or wait, is that eastern? I guess that's eastern. Away from the water, yeah. Belgium. And it was the fruit growing region, so like cherries and pears and plums. I mean, they had all kinds of great fruit. And the pastries to go with it. They had great pastries. I had no idea French cooking was so good until I went there. I thought I was going to have more like German food, but they actually have quite a nice cuisine.
Nice. Very good.
So yeah, I was there for that summer, and we went to the Ardennes, which is where the Battle of the Bulge was fought. And we went to that monument that they have to the soldiers. It's like a star-shaped thing with columns all around it. That was really cool. The Ardennes is beautiful. It's in the region kind of at the border between France and Belgium. Okay. And then in college, I did in Athens.
Okay. And how was that?
Oh my God!
I don't think I heard you talk about Belgium, but I haven't heard you talk about Athens.
Oh, I loved it. It was great. But we lived in Athens and we studied it in Athens, but we also studied it on the road a lot. So we were on field trips a lot, going to see the historic and archaeological sites. Okay. So we got all around, like in the mainland and the Peloponnesus. We traveled, and I also went to Corfu with another student just on our own, and to Istanbul, which was cool, which they still call Constantinople, and Constantinople is how they say it in Greek. instead of Constantinople. But
Okay.
yeah, they still that rivalry between Turkey and Greece is very strong.
Yeah, I've heard stories about that.
But I loved it. It was great. The food, the scenery was incredible. Like going to see these old sites like Delphi, where they had the oracle, the Dona, which is one of the first oracles in Greece. This really ancient site. It was just beautiful. The pinnacle monasteries. Oh my God, when we were going to the pinnacle monasteries, and you come through like these mountains, and then you're coming down into this valley, and then up ahead is where this pinnacle the rock formations are and stuff. When we were coming down out of the mountains, right when we got to the bottom, like 100 yards after we reached level ground, the wheel of the bus came off. It's like the rear left wheel, and I was sitting like near there, and we just all of a sudden we felt this like and then I look out my window and there's a wheel flying by, and then in another second there was another wheel flying by, and the bus had like tipped by that point onto it was riding on the axle on the ground. A shepherd came out. There was an olive orchard there, and a shepherd came out, and there was like one of those little shrines where there had been an accident. And this shepherd lit the candle and starts praying. It was a trip, and I was like, thank God this happened once we got down to the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
Because we had just been going down a whole series of hairpin turns down the side of the mountain. It was a trip. But wow, it was just beautiful scenery. Incredible history.
Yeah, that's interesting. And yes, what do you like to do in your free time?
Oh, okay. So, I love gardening. Yeah. And so that's why I was really liked starting the project that was the first big one I started after I got here. It had been in process before I got here, and taking this job was such a breeze because people like Monroe had been here, had preceded me, and had put in place this amazing suite of programs and volunteers. I mean, it was a great place to step into. It's like I have to acknowledge all the work that was done before I was here. But so I love to garden, and I have 2 acres out in the country, so I don't have a 2-acre garden, but I have a bigger garden than I've ever had. And I love to cook. I love to hike, and so I've done a lot of hiking trips. Like I did a coffee chat here about a hiking trip I did like right after I started here. I think I started in January and I left in March. But I told him when I took the job, I said I have this trip, this big trip planned, and it was a hiking trip in Spain, in Andalusia. Oh my God, it was gorgeous. But out behind my house here, there's this whole big, like mile square or more wooded area that's all ravines and hills, and people use it. Various people own the property, and there's kind of paths cut through there, and they have hunting blinds. I mean, it's a big hunting area. Last year was the first time I actually went hunting through there. I was always a little frightened of it because it's hunting grounds, and so I thought, oh my God, but I learned more and figured, okay, when it's not the hunting season, it was okay to do it. So I went hiking through there, and I was with a friend of mine, and we came around over this hill, around a bend, and then there was this like deep kind of depression in front of us, like with hills around it, and Kettle Lake. There's a lot of Kettle Lakes over there, because that's part of, we're all right here on this glacial, the Valparaiso moraine. And so there was we startled this herd of deer, and it must have been 20 or 30 deer. Went flying. I mean, they were probably like maybe just, I don't know. They weren't far from us when we came over this ridge, and they got startled, and they ran down the hill, around the lake, and up the other side. And it was like a National Geographic episode or something. It was incredible to see. It was beautiful.
It's nice that you have that area right behind your house. I'm jealous.
Yeah. It's
nice.
I like to walk. Come on, we'll go for a hike sometime.
I will. Yeah. I love nature. I love being out in the trees. And on Mother Earth. So yeah. And you also do. Are you doing any sewing too? Oh
yeah, and I did. So my mother was a huge quilter.
Oh, we should have brought that thing in with us. Oh well. Which your mom made.
Yeah, right. She made this quilt. She took a photo and made a quilt out of it. And it looks just like the photo.
It is so beautiful. But just very, very talented. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's hanging in my office, so if you want to see it, just come on by. So yeah, she was a big quilter. And then when I started here, about a year after I started here, I think right before the pandemic, the quilting instructor had launched this quilt block a month program. So like for 9 months, they were going to learn a different block each month, and then put them together into a small quilt. So a friend of mine was interested in starting quilting, and so I sent him those blocks, and he started doing it, and he twisted my arm to do it with him. And I didn't for the longest time, but now I've done 3 of the blocks, and he's already done something with his blocks, and he's starting another round of blocks. For him. We're going to put them together and make a quilt.
Oh, that's neat. That's nice.
So yeah, I do.
And you have some photos here. I'm sure that we probably talked about some things, but is there something you like to?
Let's see. Tell me if this is... Yeah, so this is... I'll show you some pictures from Peace Corps. So this was me in training. Can you see it?
Yeah, that looks good.
With our French instructor, and then the other students, Palmer, Ulysses, Sarah maybe? I can't remember. And our French instructor. And that's me, believe it or not.
I have to make sure I look at that closely.
And then this was one of my friends in the town the city where I served, Ume. His name's Ulai, and he was like a draftsman for like one of the federal services. And we used to go out for drinks and stuff and just hang out. And these are my coworkers.
Now, were they from Africa then?
They're African, yeah. So these are my African coworkers. I had another Peace Corps volunteer I worked with, Eve. And so they were a part of the social center, they called it. It's like a social services center. And so we were housed there. And then when we did our community projects, they were great because they had all the connections in the community. And this is me with my site mate. The other volunteer is Eve. It's hard to see her there. And this is her husband, Francois. He's from Côte d'Ivoire. And then these are other Peace Corps volunteers who were trainees, and we were training them on some of the technical stuff they needed to know for their service.
How long were you in the Peace Corps, did you say?
Well, 3.5 years, but I stayed that extra 1.5 years with the UN. I extended for a special project.
So you were there for some time.
Yeah, and so I traveled some, and so one of the trips I did was to Ghana, and this is in not Cape Coast. It's, it'll come to me. It's one of the slave castles. It's a very horrible history, but really interesting to see in person. And this is in Togo at a, what do you call it? Voodoo marketplace. So like sorcerers that wanted their materials to make charms or whatever, they would go here.
Oh my gosh. So
those were just a taste of some of the photos.
Oh, that's neat. I have to take a real quick peek here. Oh, just as handsome. Oh my gosh.
Funny.
Yeah.
A lot younger, that's for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, it has been such a wonderful pleasure. I still have more questions. What makes you laugh? Because we're like...
Well, good joke.
I know, he's already done laughing, hasn't he?
But I like ironic situations, like kind of where what happens is exactly the opposite of what you think or something. Not sarcastic, but ironic, I think is funny.
Yeah.
And campy humor, of course, because everyone loves some campy humor. Yeah.
Well, good.
So those are
good. And what wisdom would you like to share with everybody? I don't know if you can hear me. I asked him what wisdom would he like to share with everyone?
Well, I think it's always important to respect others and what they have to contribute. And I think that's why this job's great, is that I believe that, and really that's what we're about here, and that we want people to be able to contribute, so we provide the opportunities to do that, but also still respect yourself and your own self-worth. Respect others and yourself. I think both of those are important.
Yeah, and when we truly, respect ourselves, and other people will start respecting us as well.
Right.
And then we learn that we have a community of people who are living respectfully with each other and for others. And that's at the center with the seniors, having them come in and being so appreciative when they do come in. At this time it is limited with restrictions. But the respect that we have with our seniors, they know that they're pretty lucky, you know, and fortunate to do what we are able to do, and so they're respecting our rules for the most part and what we have here. So that's important, and it's such an honor to be here. This is fun.
Yeah, I love working here.
Yeah, Adam,
It's
like
great
I
having
said,
her.
and if you ever get the opportunity to talk to Adam, he does have some wonderful stories. When we had our luncheons outside, it was nice to sit and talk to him and learn more about him and what drives him. And he really does care about the community, and he really does care about growth and seeing a bigger picture. And he sees things, sometimes we're not there yet, but he encourages us.
You.
Yeah, he does. He encourages me, at least, to look outside of the box. I have stepped into a lot of fear over the last few months into the technology world. Speaking of which, but it has been such an honor and so much fun because of that, I've got to respect myself more, because I got to show that I can do things, you know. And it took me a moment to say yes, but we did it, and because of you. So thank you for the empowerment.
It's a team project.
The empowerment is wonderful. Thank you. Sometimes I wasn't so happy about it, but at the end, it's like, yeah, we did it.
It's always good to have someone pushing you.
Yep. And
Like the board's pushing me. Now
exactly.
return the favor.
But it is really awesome because we do become better people because of it. So I am grateful. And thank you so much for joining. Please, if you're watching this on Facebook, give us a thumbs up. If you watch it on our YouTube channel, please subscribe. We have other videos out there. We are continuing to do our Fireplace conversations, guided meditations. We're doing art classes. Adam's going to be doing a virtual cooking class with Kiefer.
Yes.
Okay.
Water, sure.
But yes, and we're going to be showing that on our Facebook and YouTube channels. We are going outside the box and going virtual as much as we can, just to keep connected with you. So thank you so much for joining in for us. Adam, thank you again so much for letting us to know you.
Thanks for
a wonderful us. Man, lots of journeys and excitement in your life. Thank you so much. Blessings.
That's nice.